Hey, what's up, guys? Just going to go over our next topic, which is gross profit. So, the best way to do this is to show you kind of on a spreadsheet because a lot of this stuff, when we get into pricing, it is a little numbers driven. It can get a little boring, but I've tried to make the spreadsheet kind of as simple as possible so that it's easy to follow and easy to make sense. Because I really think gross profit is the real key, right? Every once in a while, I will say that pricing is the silver bullet for businesses, and I think gross profit is that next level down. What does it now? Going to have the next videos on net profit and how we get to that number and how that whole thing works. But I think gross profit is really where you're separating yourself from businesses that are struggling to get to profitability and sustain profitability versus ones that never get there or struggle to get by and are constantly um, worried about payroll and money and issues forever because they never figure out correct pricing. So let's kind of dive into this here. As you can see, this is on gross profit, right? So kind of the key down here to use is you want your gross profit. Um, an easy number to use is going to be this 50% number. Is that you want your gross profit to be 50%? Now that's baseline, right? Like you got to be at 50%. If you don't have 50%, then it's hard to have, as you'll see in the next video that deals with net profit. If you don't have that piece taken care of, then it's hard to take off, the overhead and some of the salaries and management and all these different other fees and percentages that come off to where that your net profit is where it needs to be a healthy company. So, and one thing I want to explain before we dive into this is that keep in mind that having a healthy profit percentage is not something to be ashamed of, right? Most companies, software companies, right? Anybody that's whether you're Google or Facebook or um, Builder Trend or in QuickBooks, any of those guys are working off of 70, 80, 90, 95% gross profit. So never be ashamed if you're like, oh man, I priced that one really high and I ended up making 19% gross profit. Just know that that's okay. It's not taking advantage of a client or a homeowner. That is what healthy businesses do so that they can remain in business, provide for their family, for their employees, for everything that needs to happen to where you can offer good benefits. You have updated trucks and equipment that stay serviceable and running, most days. So the whole thing is profit is not this ugly word that you're like, oh man, that guy makes a ton of profit. What a jerk. No, it's what makes the whole thing run, right? I don't think anybody here is like, man, I'm going to make, $3 million this year off of Hardscapes personally. Maybe if you get to that point, maybe you go, oh man, maybe I am charging a lot, but you're probably not. It's probably just the course of doing business. So, um, this 50% number here, I think is the one that we want to use. I think poor companies are closer to that 45. Incredible companies are at 55, right? And there are also other companies that are 60%. Now, those I think are some of the outliers. They might have I think if you are into a lot of irrigation, irrigation repairs, things like that, I think you really can get some of those percentages that are really high, as opposed to hardscapes. Hardscapes a little tougher, mostly because materials are expensive, but it's just tough to get there. But one thing to keep in mind is that there are a lot of companies that are below this 45. So this really, should probably have this on it. If you're over 55, over or under 45 gross profit, and this should be 55% or higher, right? So because I think the majority of people are probably underneath this 45 number. I think 45 is bare minimum what you have to do to make it. Now, what in the world is gross profit? So, all it is you're going to take. You can see it kind of from these three levels here. Let's work with the 50% one. You're going to take these. You're going to take materials, labor. That's your direct costs of your projects, right? That's going to give you your expenses there. That if you're at 50% for materials and labor, now you're at 50% gross profit. Same thing if we get a little weaker pricing, we're going to be closer to 38, 17, 55. So that now puts us at 45 because we're just subtracting this from 100, right? It's just what's left over after our expenses. Now, smarter companies are doing it 31, 14. Their expenses are only 45%. Their direct cost of those projects, and now gross profits 55. But again, you can easily see how if you really could take advantage of really understanding your materials, really understanding your labor costs, and making sure that you're not overpaying for labor without abusing your employees. You could, if we change these numbers, what if you could get to 28% materials and 12, right? Now you're at 60%. Now, again, it's easy to do on a spreadsheet, but how hard is it to actually do day to day? I think that's what this top example kind of shows. This is my favorite part of this spreadsheet. I mean, it's simple, right? This isn't. We're not saying much here, and this is just kind of the guide. Is that hey, we want to be. Let's highlight this one. This is where we want to be. We want to be at 50%. 50%, you can make good living, you can make good money, you can pay for employees, you can do things. These are exceptional companies. These companies are doing okay, but as you get below 45, 40, and I'm sure there are guys out there doing 35 to 30 even. Small little companies, you could probably get away with it, but it's just not smart. You just don't have to. So let's go back up to this one to kind of explain where the pricing is here, right? Is that if you want to be at 50%, you have a $25,000 project, right? If we're using just general this middle yellow as our numbers, 35 and 15, right? So these don't really change based on whatever you do for the most part. For the most part, yeah, you're going to have materials of this project. You're going to have a certain amount of labor. That's going to be your total materials and labor, which leaves you at 50%, which means you make 12.5 gross profit, right? Now, companies that aren't aren't pricing things, maybe I would say correctly, and these are just thrown out numbers, right? This is just for a $25,000 project. I'm not saying in your market wherever you're at, this could be when some guys might say 25,000, I'll give you a 400 square foot patio, and some guys might go, I will give you a 1,200 square foot patio. So it just depends on anything. But it doesn't matter. It's just the numbers, just percentage wise. So as you can see here, the difference of these three projects and of these percentages is 10% either way, right? It's $2,500 difference between here and here. So you're out there selling it for 25,000. There's another guy out there selling it for 22.5, and there's another person out there selling it for 27.5. Now, to me, and everything that we've kind of found in our business is that those three prices in the customer's mind are pretty much the same. It just doesn't move the needle. If we're 2,500 off a bid somewhere, or we are we can be 3 or 4,000 over a bid in this price range and not be that big a deal. It's kind of like being at you come in at 94,000, somebody else is at 88,000. Yes, it matters at the end of the day. It really does, but it doesn't make somebody choose somebody unless you haven't shown any value at all, right? Unless you're just like, hey, I showed up and I emailed them over 25,000 and I said bye. Then you're probably not going to win. But if you're selling along the lines of how we need to be selling to help people out, then yeah, it's very doable to sell this. But the main point that I want to make is that when you do these types of things, you're only putting more money in your project into your pocket, because the best part about pricing, right, is that $2,500. So when that customer comes to you and says, "Hey, I I I've got a bid for 22,000. You guys are at 25. If there's any way you could get close to that, I'd probably go with you guys." And so most sales guys' first knee jerk reaction is to say, "Hey, well, I could go to 22.5. That's as low as I can get." And that's fine if you need work or you got to do something. But here's what I just want to reiterate is that that money, that $2,500, is staying in your client's pocket instead of going into yours. So it's not a percent of that, and it's not, hey, well, we were only going to make 10% on that. So yes, I'm giving up 2,500, but it really only cost me $250. Yeah, sure, let's do it. No, it's not. It's dollar for dollar. It's end of the day. It's pure profit. Everything that you have on here. So when you can raise your prices $2,500, you're just putting $2,500 into your pocket, into your business's pocket, which at the end of the day, for us, we're not typically, there's not a whole lot of C corps out here that are, board of directors and everything trickles down. No, I mean, this mostly goes into our pockets, right? So the thing is, the higher that you can get this, and the more that you can start making 50 to 55%, maybe even more on the gross profit side, everything just ends up working out a whole lot better for your business. I know it might seem like a lot, but I think most guys that I've talked to and guys that I, kind of consult with, they're kind of like, man, you're right. We raised prices 20% last year after, talking to you. And I didn't think, I thought sales would drop off the world, but they don't, right? Because it's just not that big a deal. Mostly people are in what we're doing of design build hardscape projects. Most people are going, wow, this stuff's a whole lot more than I thought it was going to be. Right. So you're always going to have to overcome that. People are like, hey, I got 15,000. I want fireplace, grill station, paver patio, and a pergola. And you go, whoa, okay, you're at 50, 60 grand. They're like, oh, okay, whoa, let's let's cool it a little. I've got 25 grand to spend. What can I get? And you give them this bid, and you go back and forth, and you come to an agreement of what looks good and what they really want for 25 grand. That's where people just end up buying you, because they get another bid that says 21,000. They get another one that says 23.2, and you're at 25. Well, for the most part, you guys are all in the same ballpark. Now, if you get a guy that comes in and he says, I can do it for 12, I actually don't think that that hurts you at all, because most people that can afford a 25 or 50 or $80,000 patio, they understand that they're probably not going to go with the cheap guy. And if they were, you were never going to get that guy, and you actually don't want that guy as a client, because he's going to beat you up the whole time. So that's okay to not get that one. All we want to do is be in the ballpark, and so that we keep our gross profit percentage high, right? Because when we're here, we get to be at 15,000 versus 12.5 or 10,000. Now, I know when most guys look at this, they go $10,000 on a $22,500 project. I will take that. I'm good. But once we get into the next video, where we go to the next level down, which is net profit, which is in essence the single most important number in your business, right? I mean, you can cure a lot of things, a lot of bad trucks, bad equipment, poor employees that don't show up, things that are installed wrong that you have to fix. You can fix a lot if your gross profit, or if your net profit percentage is really high. So we're going to tackle that next. Click on that next class, and we'll go over that, and we'll explain this relationship between gross profit and net, and how this number over here and this percentage, right? These two columns here, these six numbers, matter a whole lot, because we still have a lot more expenses that we're going to take out of this, as far as people selling it, people running the company, answering phones, insurance, equipment. I mean, you name it. So all of a sudden, this is going to get really little, and we're going to show why this is an easier place to do it, right? It's easier to raise our gross profit percentage than it is to somehow cut that much of cost off of all of your projects. That's a tough go. You can do it, but man, it sure makes life really hard. An easier way is to make sure that you're pricing it correctly, and that we're getting the number that we need to get, not based on what the guy down the street is charging that you've heard, or not based on what so and so is charging, or you've heard that there's a guy down there that he's only charging $10 a square foot for installed natural flagstone. That doesn't matter what he's doing. It matters in your business, like how is your business set up and what numbers do you need to make. So let's keep that in mind. But in the next video, we're going to make this all kind of come together on gross profit and net profit. So we will talk to you guys later. See ya.